Hello and welcome to News 9. I'm Aditya Raj Kaul and this is the Diplomat. Prime Minister Narendra Modi became the first Indian Prime Minister in over 41 years to visit Austria after Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. Now, Austria and India relations are marking the 75 years of the diplomatic ties, which has now been enhanced into a sustainable economic cooperation. To speak about this and a lot more, joining me is the Austrian Ambassador to India, Katharina Wieser. Thank you very much, Ambassador. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Good to have you here. Welcome.
Well, let me begin by asking you, we are here at the Ambassador's residence in New Delhi. How's your experience been like in the last more than 3 years that you've been here? You're meeting a lot of people, you're interacting with them, a lot of cultures, a lot of food, if I may say, and of course visiting a lot of places across the country.
Yeah, you are right. I've been here for 3.5 years now, and I've of course had a very good experience here in India, traveling around a bit, enjoying the fantastic sites. There are many World Heritage Monuments in India that I particularly like to visit. Some of my favorites are the Ajanta and Ellora caves. I mean, the Taj Mahal, everybody knows, but it is quite rightly so also. But there are many other monuments and temples and, as I said, caves that I have visited and that I enjoy very much.
Amazing. So any particular place, a particular state, or should I ask, for Europeans, the food palette here, it's too spicy. So have you adjusted to the foods and, different items here?
Well, I would say that is maybe one thing that I have difficulties with is too much chili in many of the food dishes we get here. Okay. But there isn't chili in every Indian dish. Yes. So I very much enjoy Indian cuisine where there is not too much chili in there.
Amazing. And I see a lot of Christmas decoration here. It's round the corner. Yeah. So what are your celebrations? Are you going back home or are you celebrating here?
This year, in fact, I'm going home. The past 2 years, I spent Christmas in India, in Delhi, with my husband. So it was actually very nice because it's a bit different. But we have always very nicely decorated residence here. And we enjoy that with lots of lights and Christmas trees that you can see. So all our events in December take place in Christmas decorated Austrian residence.
Amazing.
And everybody likes that. Actually.
Yes, not exactly a white Christmas here, but nonetheless. So where's home? I mean, where exactly in Austria?
Home is in Vienna, so we live there and our son lives there. But I went to school in Innsbruck, which is in the western part of Austria, in the mountains. So I have an attachment to that part of the country as well. But now I originally come from Vienna and my parents also, and yeah, that is home.
Well, that's home, but we have to speak a lot about your home, that's Austria and India's relationship. Yes. But let's have a seat, Ambassador, and then we can take the conversation forward. Ambassador, Prime Minister Modi for the first time visited Austria, and this was the first Prime Minister visiting Austria in 41 years. How significant was this visit? I mean, there was a lot of media coverage, a lot of attention, and he was coming directly from Russia. So how significant is this under the current climate?
Of course, this visit has created an enormous amount of publicity, attention, focus, both in Austria and in India also. We have got we're medium-sized country, so we do not get that much traction and attention, but this visit has really increased our presence sort of also in the Indian public mind and vice versa. So we have a fantastic momentum that we are trying to grasp and implement in the next years. But of course the visit did not come out of nowhere. We had been really progressing very well, not only over the past 75 years when we've always had a very good relationship, but also in the past few years, 2, 3, 4 years, our relationship had really intensified with many more visits at the political level. There were, I think, 8 meetings between our foreign ministers, Minister Schallenberg and Dr. Jaishankar, over the past 2.5 years. There was a big visit of our Minister of Labour and Economy to India earlier this year, accompanied by a big business delegation. There was a visit of Minister Gadkari to Tyrol in 23. And so there was a lot of traction already and building up at the political level also. We had negotiated a migration and mobility agreement that entered into force in September 23. So it all came together very nicely in this high-level visit.
Well, you mentioned mobility and you mentioned a lot of agreements and a lot of work that has been done in the last 4 decades to make this happen. But the bilateral sustainable economic cooperation that has now been enhanced, what does that contain? What are you looking at as the short-term or long-term goals to achieve with India when it comes to sustainability and this kind of a bilateral cooperation?
We are actually starting from a very good situation because already many Austrian companies also in India are engaged in the sustainable technology sector. But that is something we want to build on. And of course, obviously, green transition, sustainable transition, technology, that is something that is of interest both to Austria and to India. That is one of the areas where we can come together and cooperate at the technological level, but also at the level of scientific exchange.
Ambassador, on the trade and commercial front, how has the relationship been so far in the recent years? And for the Indian businesses or for the Indian investors, what are the opportunities in Austria?
I think there are many opportunities for both sides. The Austrian embassy has a trade department, a trade section that is primarily responsible for facilitating and promoting this bilateral exchange at the business and trade level. And they organize, so the trade section organizes around 5 Austrian trade visits of Austrian trade delegations to India every year, and around 3 visits of Indian delegations to Austria. We are looking more and more also into profiting from India's expertise and knowledge in the area of digitization, artificial intelligence, and so on. So I think opportunities are exactly there where our economies as a whole are going. So all of our economies have to go more into the direction of sustainable technology and digitization, artificial intelligence, and that is where India is very strong also. So that is, I think, one of the possibilities for future investment and engagement in India. Vice versa, we have a similar process, of course, happening. In fact, our business engagement here started shortly after India's independence, when Austrian technology, the very famous Austrian steel-making technology, was implemented, used in the steel companies on the east coast of India that came up. Now we have around 150 Austrian subsidiaries of Austrian companies engaged here in India in several sectors, in machinery and equipment, many of them also in the transport infrastructure sector, lots of railway technology, automotive, ropeway technology that is being used here in India. And in particular, also we have many companies in the green and sustainable economy sector. The Austrian point of view, Austrian companies' point of view, make use of the high-tech expertise that we have in Austrian companies that can be of use also for Indian companies, and thereby contribute also to green transition technologies in India.
There's been emphasis in Austria, and Austria actually produces a lot of high-tech. What can that high-tech do to the vast population that is here in India? How can both come together? The high-tech of Austria, the technology that Austria really offers, and for the masses here in India, it could be a win-win situation for both. What future do you see in that direction?
We say we are a medium-sized country, but let's say in comparison to India, to the size of the Indian population, we are a relatively small country. But even so, there are really many opportunities that we have. As I was saying, in Austria, we have a long tradition of high-tech companies. So we have this high-tech expertise, and we have hundreds of what is called hidden champions in this sector. So these are very often small family-run businesses that are among the 3 top players in their field worldwide. But of course, being a relatively small country, we need a market. So that is why we have always had a very, very open economy, and many Austrian companies engaged abroad, as one can also see in India. On the other hand, of course, India has the market potential and also the the workforce and the talent that one needs to grow. Austrian companies have always looked for new markets, and now India is really in the focus of the attention of many Austrian businesses. And so we think that partnering sort of smaller Austrian high-tech companies with Indian companies, making available the technology, and the Indian company making available the workforce, the market, not only the Indian market, but maybe also the largest South Asian or Asian market, that can really be a win-win situation for both of our countries. And it is already happening. So just yesterday I saw a press notice of an Austrian company partnering with an Indian company with exactly this vision of making available technology and growing together with India, for India and also for the Austrian company and the workforce at home.
Ambassador, apart from mobility and sustainability, another area of focus has been the startups. The Indian Prime Minister also has put a lot of focus over the years on Startup India and a lot of renewed vigor with which startups are being pushed. Is that so in Austria as well? And how can Austria and India come together when it comes to startups?
Absolutely. So our aim is to bring together the two startup ecosystems of India and Austria. Obviously, we know that India has one of the largest startup ecosystems in the world. But there are also many startups in Austria, and we want to link these two ecosystems. In February, when the Minister of Labour and Economy visited India, the Austria-India Startup Bridge was launched, and that will serve and can serve as a platform to grow this cooperation of our startup ecosystem, promoting innovation, of course, in particular also in sustainable technologies and other life sciences and other important areas that we will need in the future.
You mentioned about innovation, and that brings me to asking you about collaborations between probably universities and institutions between India and Austria in joint research, in scientific technology, in perhaps artificial intelligence, robotics, and of course innovation in different other fields of studies that are happening both in Indian and Austrian universities. So could we see further collaborations between these universities? What is the roadmap ahead?
Yes, again, a very important point, something that we want to work on in the future, or work on more. There are several layers there. One layer that I would like to mention is that Austrian universities in general are looking for more Indian students to study at universities.
Right.
Austria is not that well known as a study destination among Indian students, but we have been doing a lot of promotion in that area. Austrian universities have been coming to visit India to take part in education fairs. The Austrian Cultural Forum, that is part of the Austrian Embassy, has also been taking part in education fairs, to promote that possibility also. There are more and more English language courses in Austrian universities that is maybe not that well known. So one does not necessarily have to be able to speak German to study in Austria. So the possibility is there, and we're looking at that sector. And then, of course, we are doing that also in a more structured way by partnering Austrian universities with Indian universities. Again, it is often interesting also the technical universities that are looking for more students. That is often mentioned that the STEM subjects, science, technology, and engineering and mathematics, are not that well attended. Also, at least in Austria, there are not that many female students in these areas. So we are looking for more students in these subjects. And we know that Indian students are particularly eager and well placed to succeed in these areas. So we have several Austrian technical universities that are working on a cooperation program with Indian partner universities to make that cooperation a bit more organized, let's put it that way. So we are working on partnerships, more structured partnerships, but also there is individual reach out by several universities from Austria to India to develop these partnerships. At the scientific level, we have had a long-standing agreement of scientific and technological cooperation that is also financed from the Austrian government, and every year, every second year, I think we have a number of projects are selected, financed, and there is a sort of some cooperation going on at that level as well. But that, of course, does not mean that there should not or could not be more. And I think if we increase the collaboration in the startup sector, that will also increase our scientific collaboration.
Well, that was indeed interesting to know about the scientific vigor in India and Austria. But you mentioned the Austrian Cultural Forum here in New Delhi as part of the embassy. How is the cultural connect between these two countries? I'm sure from Mozart to Schnitzler, there are a lot of fans here in India of the Austrian art, music, films scene, and there is a lot of collaboration that is happening as well over the years. But I couldn't help but notice when Prime Minister landed in Vienna, you had a huge welcome with a musical treat, if I could say. And also I have seen the contribution of the Austrian Indologists who are interested in the Sanskrit language, in the Hindi language, and researching on the different fields here in India. So how is this cultural connect shaping?
Thank you for that question. I often say that Austria is a medium-sized country when it comes to size, but when it comes to culture, arts and culture, we are really a world power. And that is something we want to present to the world, of course, and that is why the Austrian Ministry of Foreign Affairs runs a network of cultural fora, which are part of the Austrian Embassy. So we have a small dedicated team and a little funding, extra funding for bringing Austrian artists, culture to India, but also to promote cultural exchange between Austria and India. That is very important to us. So it's not only about presenting Austrian culture here, also making artists work together and get to know each other. And of course, there's also a long tradition of Sanskrit studies in Austria, at Vienna University, in fact, since 1845. There have been Sanskrit studies at the University of Vienna. And so we have a long, long tradition. And today we have Institute of South Asian, Tibetan and Buddhist Studies at the university with a huge library, excellent library, and also an institute at the Academy of Sciences. And it's a kind of hub of Asia studies and Indology. And it is very international. Many students, scholars come from all over the world to use the library and to interact with our scientists. So we are really a center of Indology and Sanskrit studies at the University of Vienna.
Well, Ambassador, the people-to-people contact happens through cultural exchanges, but it also happens through tourism. And tourism has a huge potential between India and Austria. How is this tourism faring? Because, I can't help but tell you that the first ever country that I visited outside of India is Austria. And this was back in 1998. And I spent over a month there, from Vienna to Linz to Salzburg, to know about the rich cultural heritage, Mozart, and a lot more. So how is this cultural connect? How are you attracting, if I could say, more Indian tourists to Austria?
You're quite right. Tourism is a very, very important part of Austrian economy. In fact, 8 to 10% of our GDP is earned through tourism. It is something we are good at, I think, and that we want to grow further. I think we are doing well. We are expecting 170,000 Indian tourists in Austria this year, with around 300,000 overnight stays. So that is quite remarkable. It's an increase of 20% with regard to last year, but we want to grow this number even further. Austria is known as a really beautiful country with a lot of natural resources, mountains, water bodies, lakes with drinking water quality. So really lots of outdoor exercise is possible all year round, winter, summer, anytime. One can come and be outside, so we're a very outside kind of country. There's a lot of culture, as we mentioned before, lots of heritage, beautiful cities where one can enjoy these very well kept historical centers of the cities, and we have fantastic infrastructure. So it's very easy to get from one place to another, from one city to another. It takes only around 2 hours by train to go from Vienna to Salzburg. I think in 1998 it was 3 hours, a little longer. So this is really very fast, easy, hassle-free. And you can also get from any of our towns out into the countryside very easily. So you can move around easily, and that is something that I think Indian tourists appreciate. Yeah? Indian tourists also want clean, calm, relaxing kind of holiday where they can enjoy unspoiled nature.
Well, here's hoping that the tourism inflow really increases, particularly from India, but shifting focus to more critical issues that are shaping the world today. And this, I'm talking about the ongoing two wars that are underway. One, the Russian aggression that we have seen in Ukraine. It's been almost 3 years of the war, endless war shaping right now. And for the last more than a year, the Israel-Hamas conflict that has shaped now towards Lebanon. There's been a peace deal recently, but there's also developments in Syria. In this context, I want to ask you about the Indian Prime Minister's role and how he mentioned that this is not an era of war when he spoke at the G20 in Bali. Further, he met the Russian President Putin and the Ukrainian President Zelensky and told them that solutions cannot be found in the battlefield. He condemned the Russian aggression and the killings that were happening in Ukraine and told them that I may not choose a side, but I am on the side of negotiations, diplomacy, peace immediately. How do you think of India's role as a peacemaker in this deeply divided world?
Well, I think we definitely all agree that there has to be peace soon, and that this war of aggression of Russia against Ukraine has to stop. Whatever we can do to promote peace is positive. And if Prime Minister Modi could play a role in that process due to good relations with Russia and a good connect with Ukraine also, as we have seen, he visited both countries in the summer. If there is the possibility to play a role in coming to a peace agreement, then I think everybody would appreciate that very much. I cannot judge what the possibilities for that are at the moment, because with regard to Russia and Ukraine war, we know there is one person who can stop this war immediately, and this person is not doing that. So that is as much as I would say. We are all hoping for peace and hope that the war can end soon. And if anybody can play any role in that process, it would be very highly appreciated, I'm sure, from all of us. And I also would like to add that conversations between Austria and India on geopolitical issues and the different wars, because unfortunately there are so many at the moment, is highly appreciated. So that was also part of the visit and part of the importance of the visit of Prime Minister Modi to Vienna, that it's not only about sustainable economy and technology and tourism and student exchange and university exchange. It's very much was also a meeting to exchange views, hear each other's views on all of these important geopolitical developments and have a frank and open exchange on that. And I think that is one of the really important developments also in our partnership, that we have more conversations and we are friends, we have very good relations, and we can be open, we can really communicate and convey our positions. Not only India's position on these wars, but also Austria, which is in line with the EU positioning also to the Indian side.
Ambassador, if I can ask you to briefly also touch upon the regional security situation in Asia in the context of the Indo-Pacific, free and fair, waterways, and the rules-based international order that has to be abided by. There's this big elephant in the room, China. India and China have had, if I could say, rickety, relations in the recent past. But overall, on the rules-based international order, the Indo-Pacific, the Quad, what does Austria think?
Austria, as you know, is a bit far away from the Indo-Pacific. India is at the center of this region, but even so, for Austria, Austria is following very, very closely what is happening in the Indo-Pacific, because we realize that any developments in the Indo-Pacific are important for European both economy and business development, and also for our security. As you know, there's an Indo-Pacific strategy, which is supported by Austria. So we realize how important it is, how central this region is, and what is going on in this region, in particular for India. And I think you were also asking about India's position in this region. You are central, India is central to this region and to maintaining peace in this region. We, of course, support a rules-based, open Indo-Pacific, and we understand that India has a very crucial role to play and is cooperating in several formats, for example, also in the Quad, but also with the European Union, with several EU member states, but also with the EU as a whole, in maintaining peace in this region and keeping open trade routes that are of vital importance to all of us.
Well, one final question to you, Ambassador. You've been here for more than 3 years. What have been your memorable times here? Anything that you would want to share? And finally, in the days ahead, what would be the key milestones for Austria? Because it took 41 years to have a high-level visit to happen. But will this be a yearly affair? Will this continue the momentum, the upward momentum that we are looking in the India-Austria ties?
So what I would wish for, or what would be my vision for our relationship in the coming years, is that we grow closer with each other. I would like to see more student exchange, more cooperation of universities, at the same time more investments of Austria in India and vice versa. So a growing together, even though we're 5,000 kilometers apart. But nowadays, everything is so near. It's only 7 hours, I think, flight. And we need to come closer and work together for a sustainable and peaceful common future. So I think we are ideal partners, and we have been realizing that more and more. So that is the future, I think, for Europe as a whole and for India to work together very, very closely. I've not mentioned the free trade agreement, which could be a very good bolster or support for this future closer relationship. We will see whether we can get any further on that in 2025. But it would be an excellent added support to the very strong relationship that the European Union and India already have. And on a personal note, traveling around India, meeting the lovely people here, that is something that I had not mentioned. It is really quite amazing how strong the connection often is with Indian people. Somehow you are, as I said, you are very near to how we think, how we react. And I've met wonderfully warm-hearted, delightful and enthusiastic Indian people. So probably it will be the Indian friends that I have found here, very warm-hearted relationships that I will take with me.
Well, that's wonderful to know. And here's hoping, Ambassador, that your work, your crucial work in the last 3 years will set the tone and the tenor of the relationship, and the kind of momentum that it has got with the high-level visit recently will immensely help the bilateral ties. It's been such a pleasure, Ambassador. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.